Here's a picture of our church that was taken by a drone flying overhead. Did you ever notice when you come to our church that there are two other places where people worship God right across the street from our church? One of them is the Chabad of Chester County, which contains a synagogue. A synagogue is the place where people worship who follow the Jewish faith. Here's another picture of it. You can see that it's right across the street from our church. See, here's the sign for the Chabad right there, and there's our church right behind those trees. And then on the left here, you could see the sign, one of the signs for our church. So we're right across the street from each other. The other place to worship across the street is the Islamic Society of Greater Valley Forge. That's a mosque, and a mosque is the place where people worship who follow the Islamic faith. This picture shows all three. Here's the sign for the Islamic Center. Here's the sign for the Chabad. And then right across the street is our church property. Here's the Scott Building where we have Sunday school. It has the offices and the meeting rooms. It's hard to see the meeting house where we worship through these trees, but if you look very closely, you could see another one of our signs up there that says the Baptist Church in the Great Valley. So there are all these different places right on the same street as us. Now, you may wonder why there are so many different places where people can worship. Well, in the United States, we have something called religious freedom. That means that everyone in the United States has the right to practice the religion they choose, or even no religion at all. The government cannot tell you how to worship God. This goes all the way back to our country's founders, who had different religious backgrounds themselves. They knew the best way to protect religious freedom was to keep the government out of religion. So when they created the Constitution, which is the highest law in our country, they included something called the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights has a lot of important parts, but one of the most important parts is a guarantee that religion and the government would always be separate. Because of this, we don't have an official religion of the United States. And because of this, everyone has the right to worship or not as they choose. Here's what it actually says in the Bill of Rights. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Well, those are some pretty fancy words. It sounds a little bit like the way people used to talk a long time ago, and that's because it was written a long time ago. But here's what it means. The first part about establishment says that the government can't make a law establishing a particular religion. In other words, the government is not allowed to say that one religion is better than another. And that's why we don't have an official religion of the United States. The second part that talks about free exercise, that's the part that gives us all the right to worship the way we think is best. Here's why we have religious freedom. In the first days of the United States, most of the newcomers were from Europe. In Europe, there was a long history of governments interfering with people's religion. Many European countries allowed just one religion, and everyone had to follow that religion. Sometimes when a new king or queen took the throne, the religion changed, and that made people criminals if they tried to follow their old religion. It was confusing and it was upsetting, and it could lead to lots of fighting. Even today, there are countries where the government has established one religion as the religion for all the people in that country. And sometimes these countries pass laws that make it hard for people to worship God in a different way. Anyway, back to the early American colonies. Some of them were started by people who were unhappy that their government tried to force them to worship a certain way. and they came to America because they wanted the right to worship freely. That's why the founders of our country thought religious freedom was so important. And that's why they made the rule in the Bill of Rights that works kind of like a wall to keep religion and the government separate. This separation works two ways. The first way it works is that the government cannot set up a church and force you to worship there. And it can't say one religion is better than another and give it money or any other special benefits. And the second way this separation works is that the government cannot pass laws that make it hard for you to follow your religion unless they have a really good reason. So the next time you come to church, take a minute to notice all the different places of worship you can see and be happy that everyone has the right to worship God in their own way.